So I've detailed in other videos that creatinine is a good or at least decent screening test for kidney function. But how good actually is it? What things can actually influence this test, and can these influencing factors lead you astray when assessing your kidney function, specifically dietary factors? My name's Dr. Taranella, and in this video we're going to look at the truth behind diet and creatinine. We're going to look at how an interesting finding in a research paper changed my mind on diet and creatinine. The impact of diet on creatinine levels is another good example of the potential for the right information helping you go beyond basic health. So if you've seen my videos in the past, welcome back. If you're new to this channel, you should know that I'm passionate about this topic of helping you go beyond basic health. Each video I make is with this specific thing in mind, but it's not a substitute for seeing a doctor because it's not medical advice tailored to your unique situation. So please read this disclaimer. So there was a phase 1 research trial involving healthy male volunteers age 18 to 45, and they were looking at safety and tolerability and the pharmacokinetics, basically how quickly the drug is cleared out of your body, of a blood pressure medication, and they came across a really interesting finding on creatinine levels. Before we jump into diet and creatinine levels, first a little background on this test. The creatinine test is very common and used as an indirect measurement for kidney or renal function. The creatinine is a breakdown product of creatine phosphate in the muscles. The amount of creatinine production is proportional to your muscle mass, and almost all of the creatinine is filtered by the little glomeruli in the kidneys. So it's the relative steadiness of your muscle mass and complete filtration of that creatinine that made it a good marker to look at kidney function. But how steady actually is creatinine in your blood? All right, now back to the study. In the study, there was an unexpected serum creatinine elevation, but some of the elevations occurred before the medication was even given, and it was not seen in all of the subjects. So the investigators considered all the possibilities like exercise, laboratory assay issue, or even dietary effects. And what they found was, well, it was a very controlled environment. They were in a hospital setting, so they were already instructed not to exercise. So it couldn't be from exercise, and the laboratory assay was done and redone, and they concluded that there was no error in the lab itself. So they asked themselves what could be going on. And here's the thing that they found out. Subjects receive exactly the same diet in order to minimize confounding factors. In fact, the diet was planned by a nutritionist and contained 200 grams of cooked protein per person per day. 200 grams, that's right, which is a big amount. The variations in serum creatinine level could have been explained by the fact that each of the subjects could serve themselves from one serving dish, allowing them to eat unequal amounts of that meat. Now, when you cook skeletal muscle, creatine in that muscle gets converted into creatinine, and that's how it can raise your creatinine levels in your blood. So in order to control for possible dietary effects, the meat-containing type of meal was replaced with a vegetarian diet for the rest of the study, which did resolve the issue. Under the vegetarian diet, there was no unusual increase in creatinine, and the values measured were within the normal range. So that's really interesting to me. I was always under the assumption that food intake, and specifically protein intake, couldn't actually change your creatinine level. But this definitely changes my mind on this. And the authors go on to talk about how this is not the first time something like this has been observed. Now, we can't argue that 200 grams of protein is a huge amount, but it's not unusual for many people these days to have a target of 200 grams of protein per day. And probably you're seeing some elevations, even with much lower amounts, say 100 grams a day. Now, this is only going to be observed for cooked meats like chicken, protein, beef, turkey, pork, etc. And there may be differing amounts of the creatine and therefore creatinine in those types of animal flesh. Something like protein powder wouldn't be expected to have this, and especially if it's vegetarian-based protein powder, pea protein, tofu, things like that, you're not going to see the same effects from this. Now, I also want to be clear that this does not mean that meat is not good for you and that it's going to damage your kidneys. It's really just pointing to the fact that dietary intake can change your creatinine levels, and that creatinine levels is what oftentimes is used to give you your eGFR, which then tells us what your kidney function is. But if you are someone that eats a high protein diet, you may want to look at a different type of test. This was described in a previous video on creatinine blood tests, and the test that you want to consider is called cystatin C. So how does this help you go beyond basic health? Well, hopefully it's going to prevent you from running around getting excess blood tests when you don't really need them, and it's just because you eat a lot of protein. Now, on the other side, you want to make sure that the elevation in creatinine is from your protein intake. So you want to make sure you get it retested. You want to make sure you check in with your doctor, make sure they understand why you want to be retested, give them the results, and make sure they have all the information to make a good clinical decision on what's going on with you. So that's all I had on this video, the truth behind diet and creatinine. Hopefully that gives you a better understanding of the impact of diet and specifically protein on the creatinine level. If something like this has happened to you, like you had an elevation in your creatinine levels after eating large amounts of protein, animal protein specifically, drop it in the comment section. I'll be curious to hear some of those stories. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.